Another key aspect of effective PR storytelling is dramatization. Now, I mentioned earlier in the course that PR is not really about substance, it's about performance. It's about putting on a show, not about really the underlying reality. So, an example of this was I was at the Vancouver Olympics and there was a riot. But the media really wanted to dramatize this. They wanted to make it seem like the entire city was in utter chaos. Cars are being flipped over, windows are getting smashed. But when I was there, and again, this is just my own biased perspective of what was happening, was it was really isolated events. Maybe there was one or two cars that got destroyed, but the media will use their camera angles, they'll use their language, they'll do everything in their capacity to make it overly dramatic, to emphasize things that are small and make them seem as big as possible. A similar case happened when I went to a concert in Norway. And there was actually very few people in the concert. But when you look at the video recording of that concert being broadcasted, it looked like there were thousands of people in a giant stadium. But really, it was a misrepresentation of what happened. They used certain wide angles, they used the darkness to kind of cover up where there weren't any people in the concert. So it was dramatization. Let's make it seem more exaggerated than it really was. And that's how you garner media attention. So let's look at some other examples. So there's this shampoo that was released that has real gold in it. Now, if you're selling shampoo, it's a pretty cheap product. So there really can't be that much gold in it. And whether gold actually helps with your hair, probably not. But by putting real gold in it, even if it's just a few tiny little drops of it or powders of it, it's enough to dramatize the message that this is about luxury. This shampoo is so luxurious, it has real gold in it. And that's the kind of thing that garners media attention. So think about you as a startup. Let's say that you're opening a Shopify brand for cosmetics or for shampoo. Well, is there some super premium thing you can put in it? Titanium, gold, maybe it has some sort of mineral that was mined by a famous celebrity, some sort of thing that has a lot of storytelling ability, even if it really doesn't have any utility. What it does is it helps with the perception and it helps with you being able to get media attention. Now let's look at another example. So out of shampoo, let's move into some hard electronics. Here I was trying to research what some of the best speakers are, and I ran across this article that caught my attention. It's the 7 best speakers. But it's not just the 7 best speakers, it's the 7 best speakers in the world. And there's an exclamation point here, and it's 2023. So the dramatization here is that it's in the world. It's almost like the way a child would say something to make it seem so exciting. And then that's the kind of dramatization that works. Now, another key way of getting media attention is using charity. So on the left here, we have Lacoste. And what did Lacoste do? They released a series of polos with endangered animals embroidered on the shirts, rather than using just the classic crocodile. Now, there were very few of these that got released. I don't know how many there were, maybe 1,000 total, 100 total, but it was very, very limited. So the sales of these were completely minor. It was probably even a loss for Lacoste. But really, the gains are from the publicity. The publicity of, wow, Lacoste has swapped their logo with endangered species because they care so much about this cause. That's an excellent story. So again, it's performance, not substance. And an even more famous example of this is Tom's Shoes, where I believe every time you buy a pair of shoes, they donate a pair of shoes to people in developing countries where they can't afford shoes. So that's a narrative, and this is a case of a startup that's really built around PR. That's the key to their brand awareness, was this whole feel-good charity story, and you can craft an entire startup around that kind of PR story. And the reason you can do that is because when you're so small, you can be so focused that you could build an entire marketing campaign just around that kind of charity narrative. Now, another key aspect of storytelling with PR is anecdotes. Now, when you're in school and you're studying research or studying science, often what we're told, especially in statistics, is let's get rid of the outliers. Let's not focus on the anecdotes because anecdotes kind of don't matter that much. What we're trying to look at is the normal distribution and what what causes, what effects affect the vast majority of cases. But that's not really true with PR. Often, what happens with the media is the media loves anecdotes. They love those minority stories that really don't represent the reality of what's going on. And that's what the scary parts about the media really is they're able to take a minor problem and make it seem like it's a huge epidemic. So I want to give you a specific example of this. I was doing some research of mine to figure out why does Canada's food guide focus so much on dairy? We have this huge category that's just about dairy products. And I thought it was very bizarre because dairy is usually something that babies in the entire mammal group, it's what babies eat, and then they advance into other foods. And also, a considerable portion of the population is allergic to milk. So I found it very bizarre. And when I did my investigation, I realized that it was really corruption. If you look at one of the major councils that determines the food guide for Canada nationally, the president was the also the president of the Dairy Federation. So a clear case of corruption where the government is advising people eat things that are really trying to promote things economically for specific industry special interest groups rather than what's healthy for most people in the country. Now, when I presented this to a journalist in British Columbia, the journalist said what would really help you with this story is not just talking about the corruption and the data and the research that you did, but having a story about somebody being negatively impacted by that. So, a good example of that would be somebody that suffered from a milk allergy and perhaps ended up in the hospital because they were always told since they were kids by Canadian education system that they should drink milk. Now, that kind of anecdote is rare. So it's not really representative of the harm that's done by dairy, but it's the kind of thing that the media wants to hear, unfortunately. So you have to think about that when you're pitching stories is let's pick some anecdotes, some stories about heroes or some David and Goliath messages, and let's focus on that rather than just the dry research, which I was focusing on. Another key thing is you really want to pick up on trends because trends matter a lot. Now, by nature, I'm a skeptic and I'm not really big on following trends. I think it's really just buzzwords and people are hopping on bandwagons that don't make much sense. So, right now, there's a lot of talk about AI. Now, AI, I think, is a trend that really is impactful, that really is going to fundamentally increase efficiency in marketing and all different aspects of society. But a lot of trends aren't that way. But it doesn't matter because again, it's about performance, not about substance. So what you want to find out is what trends are going to get attention because you can leverage that to get attention. The other thing is the supply demand dynamics. When a new trend pops up, there aren't a lot of people or not enough people talking about it because there's been a surge in demand for content around that trend. So what you want to do is you want to research what trends there are. So one of the obvious ways is to go to Google Trends, for example. I search Bluetooth speaker. I see, okay, well, there's some trending things here like loudspeaker, wireless speaker, JBL. You can also use YouTube. So I was talking to a YouTube expert who gets over 80 million views on some videos, and they were suggesting going to YouTube and doing some filters, such as upload date this month, video, and looking at what types of content is really popular right now within the keyword that you searched. And then what you can do is you can decide, okay, I'm going to publish more content around that, whether it's on YouTube or podcast. It doesn't really matter. You're piggybacking off what's trending, and that's going to help you skyrocket to popularity.